Susan. I want first to share why I came up with this topic, actually. So Agile Development within the corporation. I came up with that because, as Susan mentioned before, I'm working mostly with large projects and also distributed projects. But I've seen the same thing in small projects that, well, there are two reasons why we are coming we are getting the support or missing the support of the organizational level. So one thing is that what I've seen is that some of the projects, the Agile projects, are really, really successful, and then on the organizational level, other, for example, departments or other areas, they are asking, well, what are you doing there? Can't we do this as well? Can't we bring this up to organizational level? So more maybe a positive result of an Agile project, but I've seen maybe even more often more the negative impact, which is based on an Agile project that cannot get the full benefit because the corporation puts a tight framework around the project and the environment doesn't really help to be really Agile or to really benefit from what Agile brings to the projects. So that's why I came up with this topic, and I want to share, on the one hand, things that I have done or what I've done with colleagues of mine in different corporations in order to have a better environment for Agile projects. But unfortunately, or maybe this is fortunate, I don't know, I also pose some questions because I don't have answers to everything. The way I want to go through this is through the topics that are mentioned here at the agenda. So first I want to take a look at the organizational structure and the limits or support the organizational structure provides, and move then on to the processes that are established in organizations and how Agile fits in there. And then, of course, I guess that has always to be there. So what about the organizational culture? How can that support or hinder Agile? And last but not least, some things about strategies in organizations and how they impact Agile development. So maybe first, before we get started with the structure, a little disclaimer. So this is not about Agile projects themselves. It's really about the environment they're operating in. And that's why I call it Agile development within the corporation. Okay, if we now look into the structure, I'm pretty sure that this is not news to you, that especially large companies are often departmental structured. And there's a good reason for this. The major reason is that, well, organizations want to ensure that the expertise that's there in their employees' minds, or which is also shown with the skills of the employees, that this is centered at one place for one reason, so that the experts can learn from each other, so the experience is shared actually, and also that there are a body of knowledge for the rest of the organization. So the idea is to support other departments in the organization with the expertise that's in that specific department. However, what's happening, at least that's what I see most often, is that the departments actually do not so much support each other, but more or less control each other. So it's more like ruling one department over the other, and being more, controlling, demanding than supportive. And that often is a big burden, no matter what kind of department we are talking about. Actually, I will talk about, I believe, three just in a minute, three different ones. So basically, what we are doing is kind of maybe a simple answer to that, which is integrate all the different departments you interface with as early as possible, and bring them into the project and ensure that they're either, well, most of the time they are service providers. So they're either providing a service for you, or the other thing could be that they are a stakeholder, and therefore you have to ensure that you hear their requirements and they are part of what you are working with. So that's really the major solution for all kinds of struggles with different departments. And what I've seen the most often is that this is completely ignored, and that people postpone the integration with other departments as far away as possible. Well, because it means it's often a lot of work to make this really beneficial and working on both sides. But whenever we have gone that way, people were really happy about that, because also the departments that are far away from the project, they've realized that they finally have a stake in the projects that are going on, and therefore their requirements are also respected and implemented. Now, looking at a few concrete examples. So one which we often have to deal with is legal. And as you might know, I'm not a lawyer. At least Susan didn't say anything about that, and I'm really not. So I'm not really knowledgeable in that area. However, from time to time, we do have some, I don't know, impact or problems or challenges with the legal department. And the problem is, if the contracts are shaped in a way that they are asking for a specific contract that's conflicting with Agile values. And one could be, well, also not really benefiting from Agile, which is that the content that's delivered for the product itself or the requirements, that they can change over time, and that's completely okay. But if it's in the contract that this is something that shouldn't happen, then neither the client nor we who are working on the software will benefit from Agile in that way. Or another example is, and this is maybe even more important, that we absolutely do expect that the customer is working close with us and cooperating with us or collaborating with us, but sometimes the contracts are shaped in a way that it just says, well, the clients there saying, well, more or less, this is what I want, and then go do this for me. Just hide away and just come back whenever you are done. So what you can do is, of course, change however the contracts are defined in your organization. I think Susan said that at the beginning, I'm an independent consultant, so typically I'm never in the position that we can actually change the way the contract is signed. This is typically often already done, and if not, then it will take a while to change all the different paragraphs and so on the contract. So what we have done in the past still is to at least include an addendum to the contract, which provides a description of the values and the approach we are taking, and saying that this is really part of the contract. Well, it's not really legally a part of it, it's just an addendum, but pointing out what are the actual values, for example, what are the obligations of the customer, how do we expect the customer to collaborate with us, that has to be already in the contract somehow. And as I said, we do this as an addendum and not as really as the legal part of it, but it's ensuring the expectations we are having. And other things are, of course, really in the contract, like ensuring that we do have an optional scope contract. As I mentioned before, we expect that the requirements will change